back to Get Down to Business. Joining us today is an organizational psychologist and executive coach who helps leaders trade the weight of performance pressure for the power of authentic influence. And that's Dr. Natalie Pickering. She has spent over 2 decades partnering with founders and executives across healthcare, startups, and global organizations to strengthen culture and navigate change. She's the founder of the Becoming Institute, a firm dedicated to helping organizations scale without losing their soul, and is a renowned TEDx speaker. Her new book, Leading Becomes You, a real-world framework for leading from inside out, challenges leaders to do the inner work necessary to integrate their self and their purpose. Welcome to the show, Natalie.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
It is so great to have you. You describe leadership as an inner terrain. What does that look like in a real-world business setting, and how can a leader tell if their inner terrain is currently unfertile?
Yes. So my premise is that identity is the most underutilized performance strategy in business and leadership. And your inner terrain, sometimes leaders talk about confusion or loneliness. Sometimes they're coming for performance kinds of issues like making decisions, motivating their team, etc. All of those competencies stem from knowing what's happening in what I call your inner leader terrain.
Absolutely. And you argue that identity is the missing piece in leadership development today. Why is identity clarity actually a performance strategy rather than just a soft skill?
It's linked to everything. So if I don't know who I am as a leader, if I don't know what my values are, if I don't know how the story of my life is actually connected to how I'm showing up today, how I'm making this decision, how I'm navigating my stress, then I'm not actually peaking and I'm not being maximally effective.
Indeed. And in your book, you discuss emotional and psychological debris that leaders carry. How does this debris manifest in their day-to-day operations of a small business or a startup?
So I'm clinically trained and I pivoted into the OD space. And so this is a blend of both. But what I've found in supporting leaders, now hundreds of leaders, there's something holding them back. And sometimes that debris may go way back to our early years. It may go back to something significant that happened in our life story. It might be professional debris. Maybe they experienced toxic leadership or an unhealthy, organization, and they've never reconciled that. They've never metabolized that debris to consider, how is this potentially hurting me in ways I didn't realize? And what are my takeaways from this that I might actually leverage to be more effective in my leadership and more effective in my business strategy?
Indeed. I'm chatting with Dr. Natalie Pickering. And Natalie, can you walk us through the 4 A's framework? How can listeners use these to clarify who they are and improve how they connect with their teams?
So the 4 A's, it starts with awareness. And basically we're asking, what's in here? What is my story? Then we move to acceptance. And that's, what is the impact, right? So I'm having impact on people. I've also been impacted. Then we move to assimilation, which is, I refer to that as composting. I'm a farm girl from Ohio, so we got to have some composting and manure. All that stuff that we have unpacked and realized, how are we going to use it? How are we going to assimilate it? And then the final A is authentic activation. What are you going to do with it? How does it change my behavior now? How does it change how I relate to people in real time starting today?
Powerful stuff. Natalie, this is amazing. What is the leader story timeline? How can entrepreneurs use it to rethink their current journey and where they are headed?
So the leader story timeline is designed to sort of launch that initial first A of awareness. And it asks leaders to go back to the very, very beginning. And we can use the leader story timeline to see, here's where I was actually functioning as a leader when I was, a child or in school or in this relationship and I didn't even realize it. It also helps leaders recognize who has influenced me over the course of my life and influenced my leader identity positively. And then again, we use it to be honest about those situations or experiences or relationships that may have been hurtful. And we can be honest about that, how it may be impacting us for good or for bad. And we always have the choice point to do it differently.
Absolutely. Natalie, before we have to go to a quick break, I know that many leaders feel like they are performing a role rather than showing up as themselves. What would you say is the connection between this sense of depersonalization and the high rates of burnout we see in leadership today?
Yes, that performative pressure is coming from scripts and rules that don't belong to that leader. So this whole process that I've mapped out is a way to get honest, recognize where those are coming from, recognize that I'm functioning out of a version of myself that doesn't really belong to me. And there's incredible freedom and energy recovered once leaders have walked that process.
Natalie, you are also as mentioned, the founder of the Becoming Institute to help companies scale without losing soul. What is the biggest challenge a founder faces in maintaining their personal identity while their organization grows rapidly?
Their attention, of course, is on how to scale, how to fund, how to innovate, how to compete effectively, all of these essential market outcomes. What I see, however, is they're not paying attention to the people side of the business. So putting this team together, how do we get the max synergy out of this team? How do we recognize, what the strengths are, how to use them effectively when conflict comes up? Often that's right, two people's strengths going toe to toe. All of those people dynamics get overlooked. Because we're trying to scale so quickly. If they will pay attention to the people side of the business, the scaling will just be that much more effective.
Absolutely. Natalie, if someone listening feels stuck in their leadership, perhaps feeling isolated or rigid, what's the first inner work step that they should take today to begin shifting their mindset?
I think it's giving yourself permission. So lots of leaders, lots of founders, lots of entrepreneurs who have this incredible track record of success and have these, feelings of loneliness or confusion or, this isn't really as fulfilling as I had hoped it would be. Taking permission to ask the question, how could this be different? Why should I step into this, inner work? I think the other premise that is essential is inviting someone to do this with you. Identity by definition is the story I'm telling myself and others' perception of me. It cannot be done in isolation.
Natalie, I want to get to know the person behind the microphone over here. How did you become interested in this line of work?
So as I mentioned, I'm a clinical psychologist. I worked in post-traumatic stress disorder, and honestly, that's where my understanding of how debris is hurting people and they don't realize it really came to fruition. I worked in a hospital with combat veterans who had post-traumatic stress disorder and then pivoted, and I started realizing, this stress and these traumatic experiences, these really are impacting everyone to a certain extent. And so I thought, leaders who have so much influence and are just hustling and carrying all this stuff, what is a way that we could free them up so that the leader's more fulfilled, the people working with them are more fulfilled? It was a strategic pivot, but it comes from some hard work and walking with people through some challenging stories.
Natalie, I want to give the final word over to you to make sure our listeners can find your book and get in touch with you. How can they do so?
The best way is my website, www.drnataliepickering, drnataliepickering.com. There's a page with the book. There's also a contact page that goes directly to my inbox, and I would love to hear from you.
Natalie, what a great conversation. Really appreciate your inspiration and all the great advice that you've shared. We'll link in the show notes, make it really easy for people to get in touch with you. And that's a wrap for us this week on Get Down to Business, the show all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. As always, you get on our website, syklein.com. Send me a message. I respond to every message every week, so please get in touch. Let me know what topics you want to explore and hear about. If you've got a guest recommendation, would love to hear that too. And as always, you get on your favorite podcast app to search for Get Down to Business, but make sure you subscribe, rate, review, and share so you don't miss a single episode. That's a wrap for us this week on Get Down to Business to Success. Let's get down to business. We'll see you next week right here on 856 The Answer, wherever podcasts can be found.